welcome back. Now, to coincide with our tribute to Glasgow as the European City of Culture for 1990, we have with us today one of Glasgow's most famous exports. 20 years on, she has emerged as one of the most accomplished entertainers in the business. A big welcome to Lulu. Good morning to you.
Now, you see, as soon as I hear you speak, the accent comes straight back. It's hard being a phony, you know.
Away you go, away you go.
Sunday when I was here, I was terribly English.
Were you?
Mm-hmm.
Was that
Annie? Yeah, she was kind of, she wasn't complaining, but she was pointing it out, you know, and I felt a bit guilty, but maybe that's why I'm making up for it today.
It does happen, though, don't you find, when you go back to Scotland, that your accent does change a bit?
I do. Yeah.
I do as well, believe it or not.
Do yours get thicker? For goodness sake.
Never mind. Now, you've been associated with the City of Culture, obviously, as being a sort of prominent Glaswegian. What do you make of it all?
Well, I'm extremely proud. I'm extremely proud, you know, because I have been, you know, taken up there a few times. First of all, I was there New Year's Eve.
That's right.
And I mean, it's difficult to put into words without sounding really soppy. But I really got chills. I got, actually it wasn't chills, it was more like goosebumps. When the bells tolled and the new year began and I realized it was a new decade and you know, this year it was the City of Culture, and I made this connection with my roots and I felt very good about it. And I'm proud that everybody's looking to Glasgow. You know, it's a great feeling.
It is.
And I think, you know, that it can only be to everyone's benefit, and I certainly hope so. Absolutely. I mean, you know, when I think about it, you know, going back to my school and everything, which I did, I was not your sort of typical cultural, you know, I mean, there is a lot of culture in Glasgow if you want it. For instance, they do say, people say, don't you hear them say how the Scottish education have the highest standard? And, you know, I remember being taken to see Hamlet when I was about 12, you know, and I thought, a load of old rubbish, what do I want to say? I mean, now, you know, I hear about Hamlet and I run to the National Theatre, you know, to see who's playing it, you know. And opera, I mean, it was definitely...
But that's there all the time. That was what the organisers of the City of Culture was saying, that Glasgow has Scottish ballet, it has Scottish opera, and it has the Scottish National Orchestra. So the culture's there all the time, really.
Yes.
But the year is just really to sort of celebrate it more.
Celebrate it, yes, because I thought, I mean, I was talking to, sorry to keep referring to my discussion the other day with Annie, but she was saying, you know, do you really think about Glasgow as being the cultural city? Well, I suppose really, you know, it's a popular culture too, you know, apart from the fact it has the National Opera. And I mean, that is the key because of the warmth of the people, really. But, of course, most people, I would imagine, think about people swigging and drinking whiskey and having a fight at the football match, you know. I mean, all I was interested in as a kid, you know, although they encouraged me to be interested in culture, all I was interested in was rock and roll music and boys and nail polish and things like that, you know.
Most people are. Most young people. We took you back, didn't we? Didn't we, Mike?
Certainly did.
That's right. I want to see what caused these goosebumps. So let's find out. Now, our Glasgow reporter Craig Miller took Lulu on a nostalgic trip down memory lane, back to her old school and some other old haunts.
Lulu's most famous classroom scenes were in the film To Sir With Love, alongside Sidney Poitier. Her own school was Whitehill Secondary, in Glasgow's Denniston area. A new building has replaced the one she attended. Lulu is the first to admit she wasn't the most diligent pupil. And her report card proves it.
Do you want me to read it to you, sir? Yes, indeed. One suspects that this girl is capable of much better work. Strong personality, popular with members of the class. There's it all really, isn't it?
At Whitehill, perhaps To Sir With Love wasn't quite reciprocated.
I have to say that the old school building, in retrospect, was rather much grander, you know, and rather more forbidding. I wasn't really relaxed at school, basically because I'm sure I didn't give of my best, and therefore it was a struggle.
So let's have a confession. How do you feel you rated as a pupil?
As a pupil, I was probably a pain in the neck.
But there were fun times, of course. The budding pop star sang in the playground. She's doing it again in the classroom.
Okay, we'll see who's the best singer. You ready? Oh! 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
For Lulu, Garfield Street in Denniston brings instant and happy memories of home.
The memory that springs straight into my mind is the day that Shout was released. It was on a Friday and Ready Steady Go was on, and I was watching Ready Steady Go, and John Lennon chose it as his favourite record. They played it. I hung over the window, practically fell over, screaming at my brother Billy, "Billy, Billy, they're playing my song on Ready Steady Go."
You know you make me wanna shout. Look, my hands jumping, look, my heart bumping, throw my head back, come on now, don't forget to say you will, yeah, don't forget to shout, yeah, 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 yeah.
Jiving in Glasgow's Lindella Club put Lulu on the road to stardom. A local band wanted a vocalist, the rest is history. Now, 25 years on, Glasgow is a different place in the midst of its European capital of culture status. In George Square on New Year's Eve, Lulu celebrated that with other performers. A poignant moment at a significant point in her career.
This is a time when really I'm going to start going back into the recording studio and making records again. And I haven't really concentrated on that for a long time. And this is where it all started for me, you know? And this is where I was born. And the audience went berserk. You know, it was, the place had such atmosphere and there was such life. It was like the birth of something special. I felt it very deep inside, and it was exhilarating.
Interesting stuff. And we were talking about the goosebumps earlier. Isn't it odd, particularly if you ever go back to the school you're at, you get those strange old feelings flooding back. You know, you feel guilty as soon as you see a master, don't you?
You were obviously a very naughty boy.
I was a naughty boy.
It is. You do get strange feelings. I'm not sure what the feelings are. A little bit of nostalgia, but a little bit of fear. You know, are you going to do something? You're going to be told off or something. I suppose.
We're talking Scottishness, and I think it's. I think an Englishman can say this: that wherever you go in the world, the Scots are there. I mean, they talk about great travelling countries as well. I think the Scots beat everybody, actually.
It's so true. I mean, I remember working in Las Vegas and somebody shouting up with a thick Glaswegian accent. You know, I nearly died. You know, the middle of the desert. And then the first time I went to Hong Kong, there were people, you know, to meet me shouting with thick Glasgow accents. And even in India, you know, I mean, everywhere, as you say.
Is there any definition of Scottishness, or being a Scot? Is there any definition of what makes them different, if you think they are different?
Oh, I'm sure there is, but of course I can't think of one right now. But I think, in my own opinion, the Scots are supposedly dour, as you would say. We would say dour. And, but really they've got a big, warm hearts, you know. And
I didn't feel that when I was chased out of Hampden Park the last time.
Well, you got a Sassenach anyway. You just say
I'll tell you what I think. I think they've got one of the driest senses of humour there is anywhere.
They have. And they've got a lot of soul, honey.
Yeah. A lot of English footballers.
Yeah. A lot. They've got a lot of English footballers, did you say?
It's all right. I'm just being naughty.
The footballers are Scottish. What are you talking about?
Just being naughty, that's all.
Yeah.
Let's return to Scotland very shortly and chat more
Yeah.
later. But right now, the weather.
Right now, time for the weather with Ulrika.
One of the things that Hilary said shattered me, that 90% of the women who contract cervical cancer are the ones that haven't been for a smear test. You wonder how you get through to people, don't you?
Terrifying. Hopefully this sort of program, I think it's terrific that you can talk about things like this on television, and the more talk there is about something like this, because people are incredibly shy. As you say, it's a very private part of the anatomy, and people, you know, women don't really want to go and see a doctor about that. It's so important. This sort of things must do the world of good, you know, to talk about it.
He made a very good point about, you know, if you want to see a lady doctor.
That's a great
you know,
point.
Now, in an area like this, cervical cancer, it's utterly understandable, isn't it?
Absolutely. You would. Most women would rather see a female doctor.
Let's ask you as a woman, if you're all the doctors in your practice are men, do you think you'd fight shy? Do you think you'd hold back?
Yes, I do.
What about you, Lorraine?
Yeah,
definitely.
I probably would. I go to a woman for the smear test.
I go to a man, but I have always been very shy about that.
Well, it leads us to another question. Do you know the percentages? You know, what's the breakdown of male-female doctors? Do we know?
Well, there are still less female doctors at the moment in this country, and regrettably, the government's proposals are going to make it harder for women to work part-time in medicine, which I think is a shame. Going back to the previous point, I think it's interesting that many soap operas in the States are being written with medical education in mind by doctors, so
great.
that they're incorporating concepts such as the treatment of AIDS and cervical cancer, getting them into programs, because that's probably one of the greatest ways
The more
of
it's
educating.
out in the open, the more you talk about these things, you know, the less they loom over you as a terrifying experience. You know, the more people can talk about.
Do you have a feeling, Lulu, that the 80s were the time when women at last started to come to the forefront in terms of the amount of campaigns and medical campaigns devoted to the things that trouble women? The old theory is that if it had happened to a man, the research would have been more advanced. Do you have a gut feeling about that?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely true. Women are definitely in the forefront, and it's great. We're finally breaking through, kid, and it's good. It's very good. And I think, you know, as I said, the more we talk about things like this, you know, on the TV.
And let's hope, you know, anybody watching right now who
We'll
hasn't
go.
been...
You've got to go. You have I just checked before he said what he said. I said, how long was I think? Oh, wait a minute, when was I? You know, checking it.
Right.
And it's actually every 3 years. You can work up to that. I'm sure you can get the courage to do it. You've got to do it for yourself because nobody else is going to do it for you.
Hilary Jones. Incidentally, thanks, Dr. Hilary Jones, and hope your message gets through once again. And Lulu, more chat later.
Yeah. Living haggling with anybody in a butcher shop. But he's funny. He's a scream, that Russell.
He takes it very seriously. Very popular.
Oh, yeah. He does take it very seriously.
Before we return to the city of Glasgow, you've travelled right round the world. I was looking at the
Actually,
list
can
of
I
names.
butt in? You know, I've wanted to see Sydney Youngblood on here this morning. I love his new video.
It's great.
Jason Pollock told me they were going to put it on, but he said not this morning.
Oh,
Shame, I wanted it on. He's not from Glasgow, that's the problem.
Jason Pollock promised you that, did he?
Jason Pollock said, I'm going to put it on, Lou, but I don't know if I can do it
Our show
today."
business editor, Jason Pollock, will be forced to resign today.
I've really put you in it, Jason.
I'm just looking at the list of names that you work with. It's quite astonishing, and the places you've worked. Before we return to Glasgow, any highlights that stand out of all those years in show business? Is there one moment, one night?
There's so many. I mean, personally, doing the film with Sidney Poitier was an incredible experience, and that took a couple of months, so that wasn't just a one-nighter. I think when you do a royal show for the very, very first time, it is incredible.
Terrifying.
It is incredible, yeah. It's an incredible thing to... We lassie for Glasgow, who used to wear nothing but torn kilts. I mean, meeting the queen, you know, it's an incredible thing with all those other performers. And then I remember once doing a thing for Aberfan, the Aberfan disaster with Richard Burton and Liz Taylor. And millions of famous movie stars. That was incredible. And there's been so many over the 25 years. I've been rather blessed.
We've got to let's end on Glasgow.
Let's do that.
That's where it all started. That's the place that gives you the goosebumps.
Yeah, that's where it is. That's where it all started. That's where all that soulful music comes from that really, really gave me the goosebumps, because there's a lot of soulful music right there. And in fact, I did a tour and went there and got such a fantastic reaction, you know. And they say if you can go down well in Glasgow,
That's right.
doesn't matter if they know you, you know, it's like, right, come on, show us. So I felt very encouraged by the reaction, you know.
They're shrewd judges, aren't they?
They are very difficult. I mean, they've sort of thrown tomatoes at people like Frank Sinatra. Oh, I was embarrassed.
What, he's looking thin, was he? Sorry.
Oh, okay. Next.
Lulu, thanks for joining us. You know,
Pleasure.
our guest tomorrow is the singer Tony Bennett. Have you ever worked with Tony? Or?
I worked with Tony many, many moons ago.
He can sing a bit, can't he?
Oh, it's divine.
Okay.
Divine voice. It's like silk, that voice, isn't it? Sort of smoke screen silk.
Look forward to
Fabulous
it.
voice.
Thanks for joining us today, Lulu,
Pleasure.
on more reminiscences and also helping us with that campaign on cervical cancer.
Yeah, it's very important, very important.
Good stuff.